Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for coming. I'd like to welcome you to this press conference. South Dakota Hall of Fame is the state's Hall of Fame, is designated by the state legislature in 1986. The organization has been in existence since 1974, and the mission to champion a culture of excellence, one act at a time, continues to help youth chase their dreams and bring leadership to generations and inspire others to persevere. Each year, the board reviews an average of 60 applications to select the top 10. Today, you have an opportunity to meet publicly for the first time some of the 2018 inductees. Before we begin, however, we would like to recognize those that came before them and continue to influence the future of our great state. With the prior inductees in the audience, please be recognized and given a round of applause. Thank you. I would also like to recognize the current board members and our CEO that are with us here today. With those individuals, please be recognized and given a round of applause. I didn't introduce myself. I'm sorry. I'm Randy Hodak. And I'm currently the chair of the Hall of Fame board. Each year, the South Dakota Hall of Fame directors induct up to 10 individuals. We're recognizing those inductees here with us today, and on August 12th in Rapid City, we will recognize Nicholas Black Elk. Each 2018 inductee in attendance shall come forward after I say their name and their byline to share 2 or 3 minutes of one story that best describes why they're being inducted. In part, this is practice for their 5-minute induction speech at the honor ceremony on September 7th and 8th. We would like to say that coming into the hall is about the beginning of sharing their story, and in some cases is the primary way that all of South Dakota can learn from and be inspired by their stories. We will proceed in alphabetical order. First, South Dakota African American First, Bruce Danielson on behalf of Cleveland Abbott.
I'm Bruce Danielson from Sioux Falls, and I have something quick here. I'm honored to reintroduce Cleve Abbott to South Dakota. Cleve was born in 1894 to a life's disadvantages most of us today can never fully understand. Cleve was a South Dakota born and raised offspring of Alabama slavery. Hard economic times brought his parents here to raise a family. Little did they know that their oldest child would return to their Alabama to help break American segregation through education and skills honed in Watertown and at South Dakota State. South Dakotans who know Cleve know of his amazing local sports scorecard. But as a 19-year-old, his reputation was enough for Tuskegee Institute's founder, Booker T. Washington, to ask him to quietly lead an effort to break American Jim Crow segregation through sports. He proved up to the challenge. He used his South Dakota experience to prove the value of a man and a woman was not color-based. As a young man, South Dakota gave Cleve Abbott opportunities he could never get in the Deep South. There is no separate but equal in South Dakota. The hard prairie life was equally hard for all. Cleve excelled in everything he attempted. This child brought up the South Dakota idea he could do anything and found a way to create possibilities for men and women not allowed to do anything. His efforts to create showcasing opportunities for his talented student athletes created a model for modern colorblind world of international sports. His Tuskegee Institute athletic programs were so successful, the world wanted his students and him to teach the rest of us how to be successful. His wife Jessie, with his wife Jessie, created the first organized women's college athletic programs, which then ruled the national track and field events for decades. His students went on to be world leaders using the example he lived. The revered Duke of Dakota was asked to be the first black member of the USA Track and Field Board, and then went on to be appointed to the U.S. Olympic Committee in 1946. His humble beginnings in South Dakota bring honor to all of us through his excellence. In his short life, he was able to blend raw talent with a superb mind to break the rules of American segregation. His national championships created a scorecard, but his life was an example of a true champion. a South Dakota champion. And he's highlighted at the South Dakota African American Museum at the pavilion. And you should go see the exhibit, and we'll be bringing a bunch of that to the event. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a South Dakota telecommunications entrepreneur, inductee Rod Bauer.
Thank you, Randy. I'm Rod Bauer, President and Manager of Kennebec Telephone Company. My story started in 1976. The youth of Kennebec were getting together to raise money for a youth center, so we had a labor auction. Lloyd and Dolores Johnstone purchased me, and I went to work for them at the KOA campground. And they kept me on, started paying me, and I started by cleaning swimming pool and doing all the KOA functions. As it progressed, they also owned Kennebec Telephone, so they transitioned me into the telephone company working for them. And upon graduation in 1980, they were going to pay for me to go to MTI to take up telecommunications. At that, unfortunately, Lloyd was killed in an auto accident, and Dolores couldn't let me go. She needed to keep me there working. So I continued to work. I learned the hard way. I worked long hours, and then I'd spend time studying at night, trying to teach myself. Over time, and Dolores and I had a good relationship, and in '98, she sold the company to my wife and I, and my family. And we, at that point in time, we saw other opportunities. We started various business divisions, PowerCom Electric, Charlie's Welding and Auto, which is a Napa Auto Care, Technology and Communications Specialist, Kennebec Telephone Construction, and then we purchased Chamberlain Napa. So we found all these opportunities in small towns that offer employment to people. My parents always taught me to work hard and continue to do so. And as we went on with time, I'm on several boards. I've been fortunate enough to be on several boards, SDN Communications, Dakota Prairie Bank, but I'm currently on the South Dakota Board of Technical Education, which oversees the tech schools. One of the things, because I didn't have the opportunity to get an education, I'm driven by the fact that I want to see young people have an education. I think you can still do it with hard work without the education, but you've got to work very, very hard. What I want to do is try to help young people, or anybody for that matter, to try to get that education, so and then also with the work ethic, be successful. I guess with that, that's my story. Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. Next, Public Service Innovator, inductee Marilyn Holm Hoyt.
Thank you, Rod and board. You know, they've only given us 2 minutes, and for a woman to tell a story in 2 minutes is not very much time. But anyway, I'll try. Determine what you care about that will make a difference, and live it with a passion. Even though I am a graduate of USD, my passion became Huron College, because Huron was my home, my family lived in Huron, my children were born and raised in Huron, and having a college in one's town makes a huge difference, both socially and economically. While I was chairman of the Board of Trustees, Huron College faced the possibility of bankruptcy and the loss of its church affiliation after over 100 years of support. We survived, and we were able to keep the doors open for another 20 years, but it wasn't meant to be. The college closed at the age of 122 years. A horrible event for our town to lose its college. Post-secondary education opportunities gone. Not to be discouraged, and with the goal of making a difference, Huron Community Campus became a reality. The 2 remaining Huron University buildings became the site for post-secondary classes by agreements with Northern State University. The ironic part of this story is that the Northern Wolves were the arch rival of the Huron College Scalpers, and now we have Northern State university classes on the former Huron College campus. We have about 75 students enrolled in the undergraduate classes each semester, and we just finished our third cohort of graduate students earning their masters in teaching and learning, and another cohort set to start this fall. What will be the next chapter for Huron to continue providing post-secondary educational opportunities? Possibly another challenge to be met with passion.
Thank you, Marilyn. Next, geographic landscape global expert, inductee Tom Loveland.
It's a real pleasure to be here today. I've spent my entire career dealing with friends and family that ask me constantly, what is it you do again? For the record, I'm a first-generation geographic remote sensing scientist. And I've had the privilege of spending most of my career working in my hometown at the Aero Center just outside of Sioux Falls. And for those that aren't as familiar with Aeros is the home of a program, Landsat, which is a series of satellites that started in 1972 that have built the most comprehensive record of the Earth that's ever been created. Over the last 40 years, I've used those images and many others to study the geography of the Earth from space, and I've used those satellites to try to understand how humanity has used and changed the planet and what the consequences of those changes are on the Earth's natural resources. More than anything in my job, my responsibility is to bring objective scientific insight to important national and global issues, whether that's dealing with climate change or the sustainability of natural resources. My particular focus is trying to understand where change is occurring, why it's a change, why it's occurring, why some places never change, what the consequences of those changes are in the overall health of the planet. That's allowed me to get involved in research ranging from changes in the condition of natural resources and land uses across South Dakota to the issues of climate change across the United States and overall natural resources sustainability at the global level. My career success was not predictable in my youth. When my parents pushed me out of the house at age 18, I took off with little motivation and pursuing a career that I didn't even know existed. So my path to this honor really started slowly, but it picked up a lot of steam over the years. And that's thanks to some unique circumstances that are ultimately founded by South Dakota leaders that had the vision to bring the Aero Center to Sioux Falls in the early 1970s. With that as a basis for an opportunity, I benefited from sound advice and mentoring from South Dakota State University professors. I've had strong family support, and as important as anything, I've had the opportunity to work with exceptional colleagues over the years. And through this process, I've discovered an overachieving streak that I didn't know I had prior to age 18, and that really triggered my opportunity to explore the world of sciences. I found my niche, I found my passion, and I ultimately had the opportunity to contribute to something bigger than my career, trying to improve the health of our planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next, empowering those with disabilities to impact South Dakota, inductee Ann Wright McFarland.
Hello, I am Ann Rick McFarland, and I'm the CEO of Lifescape, and I have been on this journey of advocating and supporting people with disabilities for over 40 years, and I chose this work because I wanted to make a difference. And I realized that there were many people before me, families and others who had been strong advocates for people with disabilities. And that was certainly motivating to me when I initially got into my work, but it was one story that I think really profoundly affected me. And it was the mom of one of the people we support who said to me one day, as she and her husband are aging, "Ann, promise me that Lifescape will be here when Tom and I are no longer here to take care of our son." And it kind of brought me to my knees. I thought, these families are counting on those of us who work in this profession to carry on after they are no longer there to do so. So it has motivated me to continue to do this work. It has motivated me to want to promote how important the work is, what a difference it makes. It has given me a platform to share with others what a wonderful career opportunity it is. And this honor is really an opportunity for me to lift up the important work that so many people do in this state to make sure that people with disabilities have fulfilling lives. So thank you.
Inductee Roger Music.
Thank you, Randy. It's a great honor to be selected for the South Dakota Hall of Fame. My story basically started in 1971 as a graduate in double E from electrical engineering from South Dakota School of Mines. I went on a couple interview trips to California and Texas where most of my fellow graduates were going to work, and quickly decided there was far too many people and too much concrete for me. And I wanted to come back to South Dakota and see if I could create a career. I had an opportunity to live in my hometown of Mitchell and worked with a couple partners in a company called Martin & Associates, and we grew from about 6 employees in '71 to about 200 employees in 1998. And we built one of the most successful communications consulting firms in the United States, providing services primarily to rural telephone companies that wanted to provide internet fiber optic services. One of the great things about a consulting business is you get to kind of tailor your business to what you like or what you have a passion for. And in my case, that was technology. So as my career progressed, I was always very, very interested in the latest technology, learning the newest technology, and then trying to figure out how do you make that technology into a business. And our consulting service evolved over the years into different areas, primarily based on interest. I'm a great believer in lifelong learning. You have to learn through your entire lifetime. I spend more time reading books today than I ever did when I was in college and trying to understand the new technologies. One of the other great things about a consulting firm is you get to work with great staff. And South Dakota employees are some of the best in the world. And you get to work with great clients.
Thank you, Roger. Next, medical education trailblazer, Rod Perry. I'll hold on to this.
Thank you. The year is 1976, and South Dakota is 50th in the nation in the physician-patient ratio. The legislature had approved funding for a school of medicine without walls. This meant that our Department of Pediatrics and Psychiatry is located at McKinnon, internal medicine and pathology at Sioux Valley. Well, I spoke internal medicine and surgery at the VA. Sioux Valley had family medicine and pathology. Yankton had OB, and Rapid City had a building with our name on it, but no program. We had received provisional accreditation to start a junior class that particular year, pending recruitment of faculty. There were 40 students, 27 in Sioux Falls, 13 in Yankton. The challenges were many. It was hard to recruit to this new school. There was no coverage of malpractice. All the dollars had been spent for the first 3 years of programming, and there was no money for the 4th year of medical school. But we came. We came and we were eager to join the vision of healthcare in South Dakota. And there was establishment of specialty services, development of continuing medical education, and residency programming. The March for Healthcare in South Dakota resulted in an expansion of nursing at both public and private institutions, development of the PharmD program, the addition of Bachelor of Science in Respiratory Therapy, the addition of Occupational Therapy, Physical Therapy, a PA program, Masters of Social Work, Public Health Programming, a Health Science degree, Pediatric Residency, Psych Residency, Child Psych Residency, a rural surgical program that's sort of a national model, a geriatrics fellowship, a cardiology fellowship, and I'm sure there are many, many more programs that I don't know about.
Performing and Visual Arts, Raymond Peterson.
Good morning, and it really, truly is an honor for me to stand before you representing the artists here in South Dakota, who each and every one are really working hard to excel and to represent a community, a statewide group of individuals is an honor in and of itself. You know, throughout my life, I've had a difficult time saying no. And I think one of the reasons for that is that from the time that I was young, growing up in a small community, Oldham, South Dakota, my parents and my teachers were able to see the potential in me. They were able to recognize what talents I had as an artist and a musician. And they instilled a yes, you can attitude. And I've used that as a really a motivation for me in life. Mr. South Dakota, believe me, that is not a goal that I worked hard to achieve. But having served as producer and director of the Miss South Dakota pageant in Hot Springs for 52 years, it's a title that just kind of has followed me over the years. I had a close friend that said, "Ray, you really know how to do it. Surround yourself with beautiful women for 52 years and be elected into the Hall of Fame."
Thank you, Raymond. Finally, we have our last inductee, leading integrated healthcare into care systems, John Porter.
One nice thing about following Rod is I don't have to put it way down like I normally have to do when I get up here. So, my name is John Porter, former president and CEO of Avera Health, a position that I held indirectly or directly for about 44 or 45 years. But I really think that the nomination for the Hall of Fame goes back that I am probably one of those that's the epitome of South Dakota through and through. Both my wife and I are residents, in fact, high school sweethearts. 50 years ago, we even got married. And going way back, we're Pierre graduates. My parents, one was from Carthage, one was from Fort Pierre, so those roots go way back. We have 3 children, one here in Sioux Falls, one in Pierre, and one in Piedmont. 8 grandchildren, basically the same location, if I make an exception for the one going to the University of South Dakota. And we've had basically a place to get away out in the Black Hills, either in Rapid or Hill City for many years, and more recently down in Custer. So my family and I are South Dakota through and through and really understand the state. But I do suspect that probably is not why I was nominated for the Hall of Fame. I had the fortuitous event when I got out of law school back in the early part of the 70s to join a law firm, one of the attorneys of which was legal counsel for both the Benedictine sisters in Yankton in their health ministry and the Presentation sisters out of Aberdeen in their health ministry. And so my whole legal career lasted about 6-7 years, about the last time I ever walked into a courtroom, and moved into management jobs and eventually took over as president of the Presentation Health System back in the 80s, and then eventually when the two ministries came together in 1999, I became